Welcome to this week's edition of Whether or Not. We've got Mike in the studio here with your Halloween weekend forecast. We've also got some great nature in the news stories about earthquakes and NASA. And we also have Brian with your feature on Hurricane Sandy 3 years later. So sit back, relax, because Whether or Not starts right now. Welcome to Whether or Not. I'm your host, Mariss Lautenbacher.
And I'm your forecaster, Michael Priante.
So Mike, we had a pretty wet Wednesday. Will it continue to be like that for this Halloween?
Yeah, you know, it's been quite wet the past day or two, but as this system, which was the remnants of Hurricane Patricia, which we all know devastated the Mexican coastline as a Category 5 last week, that's going to be moving on to our north, and that precipitation will also carry along with it. But drier air and cooler air will be on the backside, so it looks like that the Halloween forecast is looking pretty good, but I'll have more about that in your latest forecast coming up.
Well, that absolutely sounds great for trick-or-treaters this Halloween. And now here are your nature in the news stories.
A devastating 7.6 magnitude earthquake rocked the ground in Afghanistan on Monday, leaving in its wake unprecedented destruction and over 300 dead. The 7.6 magnitude tremor struck at 1:40 p.m. local time Monday, close to the Badakhshan district of Jarm. The earthquake's tremors could even be felt as far away as Pakistan and India. Rescue efforts have been underway, but due to the rural nature of many of Afghanistan's towns, along with many broken roads and downed trees, getting to those who might be trapped under the rubble or in need of medical attention will not be easy. Fortunately, it appears that the weather will continue to remain calm and dry through the next few days.
If you look outside during the next few mornings, you might get the chance to witness the rare cosmic spectacle in the pre-dawn sky. Venus, Jupiter, and Mars will come together and form a close triangle right above the horizon. The planets should remain near to each other even to the start of November. But there's no need to worry. If the skies are cloudy for one early morning, the planets should be bright enough to see with the naked eye. And if the weather cooperates, you'll get to see them. Last Monday was the closest that the three planets will be until the year of 2021. Even though they are drifting apart, they will remain relatively close. Next to the sun and the moon, Venus will be the brightest object in the eastern night sky for the next few evenings. Mars might be harder to see, but it will sit right below Venus and Jupiter. An extra treat for stargazers: on the mornings of November 6th and 7th, the crescent moon will huddle up next to the triad of planets.
Around this time, 24 years ago, people along the New England coast were bracing for a storm that would later be known for its interesting track and formation, along with its destructive damage. This unnamed extratropical system, also known as the perfect storm to many, formed when the remnants of Hurricane Grace merged with a strong low-pressure system exiting the Canadian Maritime. The newly formed nor'easter took a very unusual track as it backed itself toward the east coast before looping and heading back over the open waters of the Atlantic. The storm gained tropical characteristics and briefly became a hurricane on November 1st. Despite its hurricane characteristics, the National Hurricane Center decided to not name the storm as it would have confused the public, and since most of the damage was done when it was still an extratropical system. Although it did not make landfall, this unnamed storm brought over $200 million in damage and left 12 people dead.
Just a few weeks ago, NASA discovered an asteroid that will make a close pass to Earth on Halloween. NASA says there's no need to worry about an impact with Earth, but by a close pass, they mean the asteroid will be as far away as the moon is to the Earth. The next approach of one lunar distance away won't be until August 2027. This particular asteroid is traveling at an unusually high speed of 22 miles per second. The high speed is what made the asteroid difficult to spot. Until just recently, the asteroid itself is actually about the size of a large skyscraper. So if you own a telescope, there'll be a good chance that you might be able to see it as long as the skies are clear.
Well, here's your central Pennsylvania forecast. I'm Michael Priante here with your exclusive Halloween weekend forecast, and it's going to be nice for the Halloween weekend. As we head into the weekend here, Friday, it's going to be a very nice day as high pressure will be building in on the backside of this disturbance here in northern Canada, which was associated with remnants of Hurricane Patricia. We all know that that brought devastating effects to the Mexican coastline, and it certainly brought a lot of rain on Wednesday and early Thursday morning for our region. But on the good news is that on the backside of this, we have some drier air with a couple of lake effect snow and rain showers for mostly higher elevations of northwestern PA up into upstate New York. And then by Saturday, our pick of the week, high pressure continues to slide eastward, building into our region, leading for a nice dry football weekend. Penn State football versus the Fighting Illini. Go Penn State. It's going to be a pretty good day for that. Cool conditions, and again, the sun will be picking through those clouds. But then by Sunday, that's going to be the worst day of the weekend as a storm system is moving in through the Great Lakes here as a cold front is draping down across the Ohio River Valley. That will be moving in through our area by late Sunday afternoon and then early Sunday evening. So here's to recap your forecast. Like we mentioned earlier, Friday, 51, mostly cloudy skies, some cooler air on the backside of this storm system as high pressure builds in. But then by Friday night, it's going to be a bit chilly with a temperature of 32 degrees. So make sure if you're out and about on Friday night, whatever you need to do, make sure you bundle up because it's going to be a chilly one out there. By Saturday, though, it's going to be our pick of the weekend, 54 degrees, abundant sunshine with some patchy clouds. Saturday evening, though, dropping down a temperature of around 46 degrees. We've noticed some isolated showers. That's going to be mostly for Saturday evening, early Sunday morning. And then by Sunday, as we head into the day, 58 degrees with some showers associated with that disturbance in the Great Lakes. But now, here's a feature on Hurricane Sandy 3 years later.
3 years ago, the area I am currently standing in was under 15 feet of water. So Hurricane Sandy devastated much of the northeastern United States, an area most people typically don't associate with hurricanes. But that all changed on October 29, 2012, when Sandy and her massive storm surge devastated the Northeast.
On October 22, 2012, a tropical wave in the Caribbean was officially named Tropical Storm Sandy. Sandy strengthened into a hurricane 2 days later before moving into the Caribbean and then into the Bahamas. Then, due to a combination of a blocking area of high pressure over the Atlantic and a trough over the eastern United States, Sandy grew into a massive storm and turned back west, taking a very unusual track before making landfall in New Jersey. This unusual track put New York City, one of the world's most populated and vibrant cities, right in Sandy's crosshairs.
When most people envision New York City, they envision a bustling metropolis. But New York City actually has 520 miles of coastline and has many beachfront communities, such as Rockaway, where I am right now, and this was one of the hardest hit communities during Sandy.
The Rockaways are a peninsula that is part of Queens and sits directly on the Atlantic Ocean with Jamaica Bay behind them, leaving them very vulnerable to storm surge, and Hurricane Sandy absolutely devastated this community. Lifelong Rockaway resident Kieran McGee joined us to talk about his experiences during and after Hurricane Sandy.
It wasn't a windy storm, it wasn't a rainy storm. It was just that the water just flooded the area at such a fast and heavy rate that, soon before you know it, our living room furniture was floating around, and there was a river running down our block, and, you saw pieces of houses floating down and cars, and it was very fast. There was a lot of it, and it was very real. High tide came, and I heard dripping, like you could hear a drip. We all were quiet, we all wanted to find where I was, and we went to the basement, and in the basement we found the source, and we tried to get some stuff upstairs, we tried to clog it, we tried to nail down the windows, but before you knew it, the water was just rushing so quickly that we had to get out. We just had to get out of the basement.
Sandy's floodwaters were not the only problem for the Rockaway Peninsula. In the Breezy Point community, the largest residential fire in New York City history also burned that evening, and due to the floodwaters, the FDNY was unable to reach and put out the fire, and over 100 homes were lost during the fire. Elsewhere, Sandy's massive storm surge inundated Lower Manhattan, flooding residencies, landmarks, businesses, and worst of all, subway tunnels. New York City needs its subways in order to properly function. Without the subways, New York City comes to an absolute standstill. And after Sandy, the city was without the subways for 4 days, while the MTA worked diligently around the clock to restore service. Once the subways were up and running again, life in New York City slowly began to return to normal. However, life is never the same after events such as Sandy, and there has now been a new focus on mitigating any future events. Patrick Klein, a lieutenant with the Garrison Beach Fire Department, joined us to discuss what has been done to help prevent this from happening again in the department's area of jurisdiction.
The City of New York has changed our flood zone from a secondary level 1, a secondary evacuation for a more powerful storm, to a primary evacuation for whenever there's some sort of tropical storm coming. We'll be the first area to evacuate now. Also, there's the Belt Parkway runs along the southern side of the neighborhood. They've done a lot of work there, and I think one of the objectives is to make the parkway a better barrier between the water from the bay coming into the neighborhood.
Preparations such as this are being enacted all across the city in order to mitigate any future events. Back in Rockaway is where some of the most work has been done. The beach has been extended, there are new sand dunes, a new seawall, and permanent sandbags have been added. Elsewhere, various gate and tunnel plug systems are being tested to hopefully prevent the subway tunnels from flooding again. If one thing is certain, if New York City is hit by another storm, it is much more prepared now than it was in October of 2012.
New Yorkers have lived through blackouts, terrorist attacks, and now a hurricane. There's one thing that is true about New Yorkers: they are resilient, and they'll always rebuild and rebuild stronger than what they've had before in order to prepare for future events. And New York has done an excellent job in preparing for any future hurricane with several mitigating factors. For Weather or Not, I am Brian Mastro.
Well, thanks, Brian, for that excellent Hurricane Sandy story. But for now, let's look at your extended forecast. And for your Halloween weekend, it's going to be looking pretty nice out there with temperatures in the low to mid-50s. It's going to be very cool and comfortable, especially Friday into Saturday. But notice we have 32 degrees for Friday evening, so it's going to be a bit chilly out there. So make sure whatever you have to do, you bundle up and stay safe out there. And then by Saturday, we have the Penn State football game versus the Illinois Fighting Illini. It's going to be a great game at 12 p.m. And it's looking to be a nice game with patchy clouds and a little bit of sun, here and there. And then by Sunday, though, we get into those rain showers. They'll be moving in from a storm system moving in through the Great Lakes region ahead of a cold front that will also move in Sunday evening. But what about next week? Well, let's take a look at your extended forecast here, and it's looking pretty good out there. We have temperatures the whole entire week in the low to mid-60s. And just to put that into perspective for you, the average high for this time of the year here in State College is about 56 degrees. So along with that precipitation, doesn't look like there's any precipitation in the forecast at all. It's looking like a great start to your November.
Well, thank you, Mike, for that Halloween forecast. Sounds great.
Yeah, it is going to be really great this weekend. This is going to remain dry and cool for your Saturday, although it will be a bit chilly in the evening on Saturday, so make sure you bundle up as you head out for your Halloween festivities.
Well, speaking of Saturday, due to the football game, State College and townships immediately surrounding the borough will be celebrating Trick-or-Treat Night this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. So places like Bellefonte, Penn Valley, and etc. will have their Halloween on the 31st, though. But now, early in the show, we asked you your Weather Whiz quiz question. What do meteorologists use to detect rain, hail, and other types of precipitation? Is it A, a rain gauge, B, an anemometer, C, a wind vane, or D, Doppler radar? And if you guessed D, Doppler radar, then you are correct. Also this Sunday morning is daylight saving time, so make sure to turn your clocks back. And that's all we have for this week's episode of Weather or Not. So I'm your host, Mariss Lautenbacher.
And I'm your forecaster, Michael Priante. Have a great day.